just wanted to make this video about how I went about building this, because obviously I didn't just like build it like straight up and down, you know. So I've never really done an organic before. I didn't watch any videos of how to do organics before this, so I just kind of went about this my own method, but I know this is how some other people do similar methods. And so yeah, I'm just gonna make this video about how I went about making this organic. And so yeah, maybe you can learn something from this video, and maybe it helped you out with organics, because I definitely learned a lot doing organics for the first time, and I have a lot to learn for the next time too. So I don't have a replay of me building it, but I just kept on copying it step by step. So the first step that I did, and arguably the most important step that I did, was the wireframing for the organic. And this is where I got the proportions. I looked at the reference picture. I'll put that on the screen. I looked at the reference picture, and I tried to figure out where the arms, the legs, the back, the head, the whole orientation of the person, and I just like did a rough sketch with just dots and lines, and with the world edit. This is how I just got the main outline of the person or the skeleton. This is what you want to not mess up, otherwise the end result will not look right. So I took a little while, and I one thing I should have done is I should have put these knees a little bit up, because I made everything so that it'll be filled in. So like you see in the next one, it's filled in more. The knees are going to be like in the ground, and that's one thing I regret. I think it's a little too far in the ground. But this is the first step, the wireframing. And after that, I just kind of filled in the gold with lines with different thicknesses, and then I kind of used the sphere brush for the body, and it just kind of looks like a giant stick man right now. But just trust the process, trust the process. So for this next part, I shaped the body a little bit more, not much. I planned out where the sword was gonna go, so I put the sword right here, and I ended up changing a little bit, I think. And same with some of the arms, like I changed this arm a little bit. So this is when I wanted to start detailing, and I wanted to start with the skull or the head, because that was like kind of like the main focus. So I made this skull. It didn't start like that. This is where I started, and I didn't realize how hard skulls are to make. So it didn't start like this, trust me. I didn't, that wasn't my first attempt. I started with this, and I just kept on working with it. I didn't like it, so I would copy it. So what I would do is I would take what I have, and I wouldn't like it, so I would copy it and try something different. But if I didn't like that, I would go back to the first one. So I would make this, and then I was like, this doesn't look right. So I copied it, did something different. But if I mess up on the new attempt, I can just go back to this attempt. So I have like a kind of like an undo, even though you already have undo. This is just a more like reliable undo. So if you leave the world and come back, you'll have your other skulls or whatever you're working on to go back to. So I kept on working on it. I was really only working on half the face, because I would just flip it over. So if you look in the final build, the skull is actually facing down about 45 degrees down towards the ground. But I built the skull facing straight up and down. And then once I got it how I liked it, so I got to about here, and I was stuck between like two different skull designs, and then I rotated it about I think 10 degrees at first, and then I would just fill in the gaps like you can see here. I rotated it, and then it would leave these gaps, and it would not look right. It would look all messed up like this, and I would just fill it in. So I built it normally, and then I would rotate it and then fill it in. So then I rotated it from 10 degrees to like 35 degrees. So it was like 45 degrees or something like that, around that. And then I don't really have many steps after that. I just put the skull on it, and then just started working everything around it. So I obviously started with the skull, So I just put the skull in, and then it's, you can see it easier on the back, but I put these oak cylinders, just pasted them around with a world edit brush, just for a placeholder for the leaves, and then I would go back and detail them. So I just did that with the world edit, and then I started on the robe, or whatever you want to call it. So I started with the robe, and I just started basically filling it in. You can kind of see I still have the skeleton like stick figure like underneath this, so I just kind of draped like a cloth over it, 'cause, I mean, that's what clothes is just draped over. So I just kind of like placed everything over top of it, trying to make it more as like smooth as I can, just making it flow. And looking back at the reference picture, and I wanted these two lines to stick out, so I highlighted them on the ends with lighter colors. And then to make that pop out more, you put darker colors in where it goes behind, so it gives it more depth. Same with this, more noticeable with like shaders. When you sit back, the glass doesn't look right with shaders, but when you sit back, the darks give it more depth and more texture. And then once I did that, I did this all by hand. There's probably better ways to do it, and I know other people do it differently. I did the whole body, just covered it all. I didn't do the back because no one looks at the back. I didn't take any pictures of the back, but then I started doing other details like the hands, and they were kind of difficult. I'm still not too happy with them. I think they could have been a little bit better. So with the leaves, the light is coming from like this angle. So I wanted to shade everything with that in mind. So the leaves on the top, so up here on the top left, everything is bright yellow or yellowish green. So I used lime glazed terracotta and bamboo, and then I faded it from that to azalea leaves, to oak leaves, then to, that's oak leaves, and then to birch leaves, and then to spruce leaves. So those are the leaves that I chose. And then I would highlight it with bamboo glazed terracotta, and then for the dark parts I would use dark prismarine, and then for the mediums I would use waxed terracotta, or waxed cut slabs, my bad. Because with the leaves, obviously you don't have slabs, so with when from this angle, the main part, you don't really notice the slabs, but they definitely pop out when you they don't really pop out, but they give it more of a leafy texture, so it's not just like a clutter of just random leaves. Like you can notice here, like there's the leaves that pop out, and then you don't really notice these too much, but they look like darker leaves, and they just, everywhere I just put it like a slight slope wherever I could with the leaves to give it like a layered texture, and have lines in there, because when you look at a tree, the leaves, there's a lot of lines, like just small lines that make up a tree. But yeah, I just layered it dark to light, and then after that I did this arm, just a lot of slabs, a lot of it. I just did everything by hand. Obviously I did this with the brush, but everything else I did by hand, and it took a long time. After that I did the flowers. It took me quite a few tries to get this right, because I wanted them to have that like 4-leaf like shape, but on a smaller scale it's very difficult. So I just kind of made them they just kind of look like blobs, so they don't have to be perfect, because when you look at them from afar, they just kind of look like they're placed in there. They don't have to look like a perfect 4-petal flower. Obviously this one is more noticeable with the 4 petals, but these, like, they're just kind of like almost like little blobs, but when you look at it from afar, they don't look like blobs. Oh, and then for the hands, I used this that I made a while ago as a reference. Just looking at your own hand when you're making a hand is probably the biggest tip I can give for making hands. After all the leaves and the clothes and the hands, then I did the sword. I already filled this in with stone, but I didn't have it detailed, so I worked on the sword, and it was all blocks at first, but to texture it or to make it more smooth, I added these walls. You can add these anywhere where there's a 1 block difference. You can just put a wall in there and it'll make it more smooth. And then I added these crossed patterns. You can see they go both ways, but if I did it white this way and white this way, you would kind of lose some of the pattern. So I did white this way and then dark this way, and then to make the white pop out, I made it darker around it, so when you're up close you notice it more, but even when you're further back you don't even notice that it goes, you don't notice it that much that it goes from light to a little darker before it meets the white. That just makes the white pop out more. And then for curves, I haven't done too many curves in the past, but it was definitely a big learning curve for me. And how I attacked this is I looked at the reference picture. So I made the handle first. I put the little ball on the top. I made the handle first. I wanted to figure out how long it would be, and then I looked at the curve. I picked I started with this light blue curve, and I figured out I picked 3 points on the curve that I wanted to reference where in the picture those points were. So I started my first point here, and then I looked at the picture. I said, where does it meet the handle? So I said it meets about here. So then I put the second point here, and then I said about how far does it come out? Where does the peak come out to here? So then I picked my third point about here somewhere, and then I connected those. And I did not get it right the first time. It takes a few tries to get the curve right, but you pick 3 or 4 points, however many you need, and you pick those based on the reference picture or whatever you're looking at, or you could just do it by hand and just fill it in with just slabs, stairs, and to smooth it more I used iron trap doors, and then I used these for the highlights because it's a more metallic type of thing because it's a sword. So I used this to like highlight it. I did the same thing here. I used lighter colors and then darker colors. But yeah, that's how I did the whole character itself. The skull, it's just trial and error for most of it, looking at reference pictures and everything. It took a long time. And then I did the terrain. The terrain is kind of self-explanatory. I just did a lot of blobs. I actually did this in this is Axiom, so I just did this in Axiom with the sculpt thing, and then I just kept on layering it and then shaping it more and more, and then I flattened the rocks a little bit, and then I painted them because it also has a painter thing where you can paint stuff. So I did that all with Axiom, and I just painted it. I just did the turf and the coal just to shape the rocks, just to blend the rocks, to give the rocks like a shading. And then for the cracks, because you want the cracks to pop out when you're looking at like rocks like this, it really defines the rocks and it doesn't just look like one big lumpy ground. That's when you put the the mud in between it to make the rocks pop, to make the rocks look more individual. Like this from afar, if everything looked like this, it would just look like it would look like this, just like a mushy ground with not much separation between the rocks. Like I could make this and this look like two rocks if I just filled this in with more mud and colors. I could separate these two completely, and I could probably even separate these two completely and make it look like three different rocks. So that's how I did that. And then I obviously did the highlights here on each rock, because I did the same point for the light. So I had the light coming in from generally this direction and just shining the rock. I don't know why I added iron block. I probably shouldn't have. I was just testing that. That's still there for some reason. So I did that, and then I just added all the moss, cobblestone, and leaves, or I mean grass, all by hand. This is really helpful with Axiom, especially because I could just pick this color, and I have the keybind set to V, but you can turn these things on. So I just hit V and I can replace just super easily. So that's how I did that so quickly and more efficiently. Don't look at the back, it's kind of naked in the back. So then I started testing trees out. I struggled with they're not even trees. If you look at the reference picture, they're more like little flowers. I don't know what plant they are, but I really struggled a lot trying to figure out how to make them, because there isn't that specific color in Minecraft. So I had to figure out how I wanted to do it. I could go with a more red scheme, like this is like a more red color scheme. I tried to mix them here, but I thought it was too much of a contrast. And then I went with like a more pink. I wanted to do more pink and like some lighter. I ended up not going with any of these with all like the slabs and everything in it, only because I thought it would contrast these leaves too much. Because if I had all slabs and like super thin intricate plants contrasted with these leaves, which are mostly blocks and some slabs, it just wouldn't go together, because it's like two different types of leaves. Even though if you look at the painting or the reference picture, they're very similar style and size leaves. So I wanted to use also blocks and slabs to kind of match the leaves that I did there, to kind of have more of a unity, to have just to make it match, kind of not have such a contrast. So I did these 4, I almost said 3 because I can't count. I did 4 little trees, and then I went over here and then I copied them. I turned it like 10 degrees and like 20 degrees just so that I could have some variety. So I used these. I pasted these all around. I used Axiom again. You can copy stuff and paste it. I ended up changing the colors a little bit, as you can see. I changed the colors a little bit after I pasted them in, but I pasted them in just layering them around, even putting some of the taller ones just in the ground just to make them different sizes, and then just making smaller ones. Like this one is probably a bigger one. I just shoved it in the ground just to make it look like a shorter tree. And then I changed some of the leaves to make it look more red, because when you're looking at it from afar, it kind of blends more, especially when you look at something from afar. Colors blend a lot more than you think. That's why I use blocks like this. Like I would never use these arrows. I hate these arrows. I despise these arrows. I would never use these arrows in a build that's smaller, that you'll notice the arrows. Like if I make a small house, you're gonna notice those arrows and they're kind of distracting. I'm not a big fan of these, but when you look at it from afar, like you can't even tell that those are arrows. It's just the color. So think about that when you're looking at something from afar. I didn't use the arrows up here as much because I knew you would see them more, and I don't really like the arrows, so I didn't use them up here, but I used them back there because my picture was going to be taken from about here, so I didn't want those to be arrow filled. But once I pasted these trees or flowers or whatever you want to call them, I actually went in and shaded them more by hand with crimson planks. The reason I shaded them like this, like just more, is so that this tree and this tree would be more separated, because before, when you look at it from afar, they just kind of blend together. Like if you look at this cluster of trees, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like there's like 5 trees that you can see, but when you look at it from afar, this just kind of looks like a mush. Like they just kind of look mushed together. Like there's no separation between them. So to separate the trees, so the light part of this tree is here and the dark part of this tree is here. So the contrast between the two trees separates this tree from this tree. So it's not too noticeable, but it's noticeable enough to separate them, and you can notice this tree from this tree, and it's not just one big mush, kind of like these are. And then obviously I went around and put vines, and I used a 3-color leaf palette for all the leaves, just to, I don't know why, just going from dark to the lighter spots. I did this all by hand also. So yeah, that's how I did this. I have no experience with organics before this, and I never really build on this scale. But if you want to know more about how I've done other builds and some of my thought processes behind them, let me know. I'd love to do more of these videos and stuff, and just talk about why I did what. And whatever you do, just don't look at the backs of my builds. They're never usually done. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you liked, please consider subscribing, and I hope you learned something. That's the most important thing. I hope you learned something, and see you next time.